Businesses talk about putting the customer at the centre of everything they do and being customer-centric, often including this in their business strategies. But as more customers now interact with organisations through technology and online channels, the concept of customer-focused design is beginning to gain traction. Nigel Freitas spoke to Darrel from Second Road about the importance of the customer in technology.
So the first thing you need to understand about user-based design is that it's not just another business process. It's not just another TQM or stage gate process or Six Sigma that we're going to apply to our existing business processes. It's really a fundamentally different approach philosophically to innovating and creating value. So that shift goes from the kind of the old world view of starting with a technology and then adapting that to the marketplace and using traditional market research to make it less bad or less onerous to work with in effect, and shift that all the way to starting with having a deep understanding about who customers are, what delights them, what inspires them, what do they find meaning in, and then create technology in the service of that. And so that's a very different way of thinking about and approaching business, and certainly approaching innovation.
So the concept isn't necessarily new in that business has been talking about putting the customer at the centre of everything they do for quite some time. Is it simply taking that idea of customer centricity and applying it to technology?
Well, first off, it's been evolving for probably 70 years as a practice. It was first really applied as a practice in the world of consumer products. So the Procter & Gamble's and the Lever Brothers and these big global giants started really to realize they needed to have deep empathy for customers, consumers, because ultimately they were dealing with commodity products. It then shifted to the technology world when the tech world started to, when the tech sector became a consumer sector, when technology got down to the consumer, and those technology companies started hiring in marketing professionals and design professionals from the consumer product world, as businesses found they were dealing more and more with commodity-based technology products.
You mentioned some fairly well-known consumer product companies such as Procter & Gamble, for example. But these companies, some of them have an almost fanatical obsession with customer needs, and they will go out to customers' houses and watch and observe how they use their products. We haven't seen that same level of customer focus in the IT sector, have we?
Actually, you have. So there are companies, it's now actually standard practice, even with big companies like Intel. Microsoft has hundreds of people taking a user-based design approach, many hundreds of people. HP, hundreds of people globally, Adobe, etc. So what I haven't seen in the IT sector in Australia is the application of this. But I think that the application of user-based design is a huge, it's a major trend that is changing the competitive dynamics of global markets. The major players are adopting it. I believe Australian companies, especially Australian technology sector, is late or behind in recognizing this trend and certainly they're behind in adopting it, which is a huge potential advantage for Australian companies to compete within Australia, and it's almost a prerequisite to join this global competitive, hyper-competitive world, to have Australia be competitive in that domain.
And what are some examples of technology companies that you think have adopted this user-centered approach very well?
Well, certainly the iconic example is Apple, and everyone talks about that. We all tend to love Apple and admire the experiences that we create. But you know, there are technology companies like Intel and HP that I think do a fabulous job in incorporating user needs and user understanding into their processes. As I said, it's really becoming a standard.
And in terms of Apple, how much is that about having Steve Jobs as a visionary leader who thinks about customer needs, as opposed to the company itself adopting a formal user-centered design approach?
I think Steve Jobs authorizes and embodies a user-based design approach. So as a leader, he's a very visible and hands-on active leader in doing user-based design. And he would strongly agree with that. In doing that, he has created an environment. He's created a culture around him that shares that passion for doing, in his words, insanely great experiences for customers. So it's not just a process that creates that, it's a culture. It's an in-baked value system that says we actually care about serving customers and delighting customers and surprising customers in ways that, that they're going to really find meaningful and impactful. What can we do to blow customers' socks off is where they start.